This is the Startups Dil Se podcast. Thank you for tuning in. Do us a favor, subscribe on YouTube or LinkedIn, and be sure to give us your feedback. Hope you enjoy this episode.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us from wherever you are. We're back with a brand new episode of Startups Dil Se. I'm delighted to bring to you Vishal Modi from Spoonified today. Vishal and I have been talking for the last few weeks about some amazing work he's been doing in trying to use AI in the food industry, help kids, help everyone with nutrition. I'm sure Vishal's going to talk more about it and educate us on what he's doing there. But Vishal, thanks so much for taking the time on a Saturday and joining us here on Startups Dil Se. Welcome.
Absolutely, Anthony. Thank you very much for having me here today. Good morning, everyone. Vishal Modi. I'm the founder of Spoonified, and again, my journey is like I'm an engineer by nature, and then I did my schooling here as an immigrant, and during that phase, I encountered this problem for which I suffered through multiple years before I had the courage to even get up and do something about it. And here I am today sharing with Anthony that story behind what got me started on my startup, Spoonified. So glad to be here today.
Great, Vishal. So let's go back a little bit, right? You said that you're an immigrant, much like I am. You know, you came here to study. And if I know your background right, you went to B school. You obviously did your master's here. And then, I mean, this is your first venture, so to speak, right? You were in big tech or, the hardware industry for a really long time before you chose to say, okay, I have the courage to come do this on my own. So, I mean, can you walk us through a little bit of that journey, if you will, as to, what actually prompted you to even, get that willpower to get started with Spoonified?
Yeah, absolutely. And so this problem, I mean, that we are talking about today that I went through was a weight, right? Weight gain and journey through weight management. Which is similar to what a lot other people kind of go through, and so I always have been on the heavier side throughout my childhood, and to an extent where I have been bullied because of my weight, and those scars were still kind of somewhere within me and bothering me, and it was during that phase of coming to the States, adapting to this new lifestyle, new food that we get here, and the problem seems to kind of have exacerbated itself to a point where in COVID it got really worse. I mean, I gained a lot of weight, and that is when I kind of got up and said I have to do something about it. And like many other people, I joined a diet program, and that is when it struck me. And the first thing that I was told is, hey, here's your meal plan, and here's what you should be eating. And I said, okay. And I asked the dietitian, I'm like, how will I be able to manage, or how should I track it? Given my engineering background and business background, it's always about KPIs and monitoring the progress. And the answer was like, you need to measure your food, then cook it and eat it. And that thing did not jive with me at all. And I fell off the program on the fourth day out of a 12-week program. And it was that moment when I realized, I worked in tech industry, Motorola, seen the evolution of the industry from a technology standpoint, this whole smartphone evolution and how smartphone has penetrated our lives and it made our life easy. So that's when I decided to do something about can there be smart utensils that can do this job for me, like measure my food and eat and track the nutritional intake, and imagine that data is available to my dietitian. And so that's how I got started, literally just putting things on a piece of paper. And it took me 2 years before I got the courage to even form the company, but that's how the journey started.
Yeah, that's fascinating, right? I mean, a lot of founders go through this personal pain before it hits you really hard, and you try to do. I'm so glad you're doing something about it. But to your point on the weight loss programs that are in every nook and corner, to you taking a different approach to this, What made you think that, you actually needed a different perspective, and the fact that, okay, I mean, you start with how you actually intake your food, right? I mean, so when did that kind of hit you to say, okay, I mean, it's not about really the calories, or most of those weight programs say, oh, so much protein and so much carbohydrates and so much of this and so much of that, to versus your approach, which is different with Spoonify.
So that I think started when I joined this diet program, right? And I started tracking myself. Like on the second day, I measured like I was spending roughly about 10 to 15 minutes just like getting the food ready, measuring it before cooking it, right? And so I on the first day or the second day, I spent literally about 30 to 35 minutes just for measuring that food before I could cook it and eat it. I'm not even counting that time. And as I noticed this problem, I felt that this is like in today's day and age, spending 35 minutes to do something that has already been automated in a lot of different ways in other industries. Why cannot be adopted in
Yeah.
industry? And so that got me started. And past that, I started talking to a lot of people like, who I met across in different forums who were going through the same weight loss journeys. And I realized that this indeed was a common problem of, the journey itself had so much friction built into it from the very beginning that people lose motivation to do it. Like imagine spending 35 minutes every single day to keep doing it, and you have to do it for 6 months before you see the result. So that is something that struck a chord with me and got me started. And the other thing I realized, I have used
Yeah.
multiple apps, and I realized that I was always estimating the food, and which was tied to this original problem of measuring, right? So that's how I got started on this concept.
Yeah, got it. So let's talk about the concept itself, right, Vishal. So what does your device do differently? I mean, obviously, you mentioned yourself there are so many apps, where you put it on a plate, you take a picture, it gives you the numbers. I mean, but most of them are very approximate, right? I mean, it's not very accurate. I mean, it's not very spot on. I mean, so with the different approach with Spoonified, with a hardware approach to it, bringing in your engineering background and of course the pain point that you face. I mean, what did you want to do, and have you gotten to a point with Spoonified to where you wanted it to be?
So where we differentiate, there are great solutions available out there today, but what if you observe, they're always a degree apart from your food and your mouth. Where Spoonified comes in is we
Yeah,
bridge that gap between your plate and your mouth. So think of it this way, that we are solving that mile zero problem when it comes to the nutrition tracking journey. So what we have built
yeah,
is an intelligent spoon and fork that not only identifies the food that you eat, but also tracks every single bite that goes into your mouth. And what that allows us to do is
mm,
precisely compute the amount of food that you're consuming in a meal. And then we use that data to compute precisely your nutritional intake.
yeah,
And we just don't end there. And one of the gaps that we see in the industry, and it's I think a limitation of existing solutions, is that they do not provide insights or any interventional guidance when it comes to eating. A lot of it, when it comes to nutrition tracking and overall health, goes to how you eat. And are you
yeah,
doing it for the right amount of time? Are you eating too much or eating too fast? So our utensils allow you to also track the speed of eating. How much are you scooping and putting in your mouth every single bite? And we provide real-time alerts, like through haptic feedback. So imagine that you are eating, and the spoon would know that Vishal eats like X 3 scoops a minute. But obviously, like anybody else, there are stressful situations where I end up eating too fast. I'm eating 6 scoops a minute, and that's unhealthy.
yeah.
And so that's where our technology allows us to provide those real-time interventional alerts to alert the user and say, slow down. You are mindlessly eating at this point. And so our overall goal is to help people cultivate sustainable mindful eating habits. So, and that's what keeps us driving to develop these features.
Got it. Got it. That's a really innovative way to look at it. So you said a few things, and we'll double click on that. You said haptic feedback. You said it can measure the speed at which you're eating. It can also guess what you're eating and, tell based on that, do the math on the calories and the intake as well.
Mm-hmm.
So let's maybe go under the hood a little bit, right? I mean, so did your background in, say, the Motorola's of the world and the other high-tech companies kind of help you to build it? Because there's a lot going on in a spoon or a fork itself in terms of technology, right? So how did you actually go about innovating or even putting that hardware together? Because I mean, a spoon's form, size, and all of that needs to be at a certain size, right? I mean, you can't make a big spoon. I mean, that's not even a starter. So you got to compact everything into that size.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, it needs to look like a spoon at the end of the day. There's a lot that need to be put in there. So how is that journey to innovate from obviously having a vision to putting all that into that spoon or fork?
Yeah, Anthony, I attribute a lot of it to my experience in the tech world, right? From the old Motorola days. And, there's always something that I always wanted to kind of be in the entrepreneurship world. And that was always a vision as one of the career goals. So that and subconsciously that being the end goal, I navigated my career in a way that allowed me to touch all aspects of product development and go to market, from the technical aspect to how the product to launch the product, what features to put in the product from a software and hardware standpoint, to the program management aspect of the tactical aspect of launching the product in the market, to the strategic aspect of like what is the market need and how do you design a product that fits those needs. So that was at a high level, my journey at Motorola, and I complemented that with my journey at Lenovo, where I managed the overall business for the tablet business unit, or Android tablets. And that kind of allowed me to learn the business aspect of, from an operational standpoint, from a finance standpoint. So over the course of 17 years that I spent in this tech industry, I pretty much touched every aspect of what it takes to understand a business need or market need, develop a product, launch the product, and manage the financials and the operational aspect of that business. And I think
Yeah.
when I struck this problem within me, I somewhere knew that this is me. And one thing that always struck with me is this quote from this book, "The Monk Who Sold the Ferrari," is we are all here for a special reason. And to me, that was a pivoting point. I'm like, this is it. I need to do something about it. And when we did market research and realized this is a common problem for a lot of people, and that's when I chose to do it. So my career is what helped me see this in real time at Motorola and Lenovo, and I applied that to what we're doing today here at Spoonified.
Yeah, that's great. So you said we did market research. So Vishal's not a one-man army here. So whom have you surrounded yourself with to put all this together at Spoonified?
Yeah, so this journey, so I bootstrapped this journey, and like many other founders do. So obviously, it comes with its own set of challenges, primarily when it comes to budgets, right? So you are always trying to balance the product development and at the same time validate if there is a market need. And that's when I had to kind of be resourceful, in the sense, try to find those resources to validate the problem. So I initially started with just cold calling various dietitians, clinicians, physicians, anybody who I could find in this field of nutrition tracking. I talked to them, but I quickly realized that that was not going to be sufficient. I need a team, and that's when I started looking at what other resources were available out there today. There were definitely survey tools, but they were priced pretty the hefty cost that comes along with it. And I needed somebody that
Yeah.
could have more intimate conversations with people to do it. So I needed a team. And that's when I started looking at, the local universities, students, graduate students. And I talked to a few of them. And ultimately that led me to finding out a couple of programs at the University of Texas at Dallas. And so it started with working with a professor, determining a project for a market research course. And that's how we started. We had a team of 6 or 7 students do our first initial survey. And we were able to reach out to 200 plus people in our surveys. Again, surveys, we all know, come take that information with a grain of salt. So we conducted second surveys, and now I'm also part of this program at Innovation at Work at University of Texas at Dallas, where we are actually sending people in the field. Like I have a team of around 5 or 6 students, graduate students, who are actually working on behalf of Spoonified, talking to B2B partners on a daily basis and uncovering insights that I alone wouldn't have been able to do.
Got it. And it's always great to tap into universities and academia, right? I mean, the kind of the mindset is totally different, and the reach that you get is always awesome. So glad that you were able to do it right in your backyard as well, right?
Yeah,
And
and plus other thing, Anthony, in that case was also, as I engaged with these students, I believe that there was a it was good complementary, like, offerings, in the sense these students were hungry to learn. I mean, in the
yeah,
uncertain times that we are living in, and a lot of the students that I work with are international students, right? Who are like trying to build their career in the United States. And having myself been in their shoes 20 years ago, I understood their struggles. And so for me,
yeah,
what I realized was this was also an opportunity for me to help them work on a real world business problem, gain those skills.
yeah,
And one of the things I always try to do is push themselves, show them the vision, and give them the freedom to do it, which allows them to not only be creative, but also experiment with things. And
yeah,
what I have learned is once they complete the program, they come with they have a whole different perspective. They have learned a lot of things. They have learned what it takes to just cold call somebody and talk to them, talk to a business partner,
yeah.
talk to a CEO of a small business, which is something that they wouldn't have been able to do in a class project. So that's where I believe that this has also allowed me to give back, to the community, and help these students build a robust career in the United States.
Yeah, that is always so gratifying, right? To give back. I mean, especially to your point. I mean, we know the struggles. We've been through that struggle, and we when we see somebody else go through it, it's so gratifying. Can't agree more. So let's moving forward a little bit to where you are, all right. So you shifted careers, you became an entrepreneur, you went through the problem yourself, you started Spoonified, and you've obviously built the spoon, right? Do you have a name for the spoon?
We don't. I mean, we realized that Spotify does, in some sort and fashion, kind of limit the scope, because the journey started with looking at the ecosystem of utensils. We realized that
Absolutely.
spoon and forks are the most commonly used utensil in any given culture. So that is why we picked and started with that. But that said,
Yeah,
we already are working on a plate. We already are working on a cup that would complement the existing portfolio of spoons and forks that we have. So
yeah,
that said, where we are today is, to answer your question, we have not kind of locked down our brand name per se, but we have thought about a few and are already filing trademarks against those. So once the timing is right, we'll obviously launch it in the market and announce it.
perfect.
But yeah, so that's the vision, to have an ecosystem of utensils that can talk to each other and provide holistic nutritional insights to not only the user, but also to their clinicians in real time.
Got it. Got it. Yeah, that makes sense. So let's talk a little bit about how things are going, right? I mean, you've obviously got the spoon. You're working with the universities. There's a bunch of folks in the ecosystem, which you told me in the Dallas area, that's kind of trying it out as well. So
Right.
what's the early results been? I mean, are you happy with what the spoon itself is doing, and what's the reaction from those who are using the spoon?
Yeah, so the early reactions and the feedback that we have got are super encouraging. We still have a little bit of work to do on the technical side, but we have shown our initial concept and demos to various B2B partners spanning from healthcare institutions to clinicians, physicians, endocrinologists, cardiologists, and the feedback that we got is, yes, we are solving a problem that is common across all of these, industries where nutrition tracking is key to obtaining the health outcome, or directly is correlated to the health outcome in a particular scenario. So those feedback have been super helpful. We have conducted multiple like meetings with companies in the cardiometabolic space, and we continue to solicit their feedback. So at this point, we are pretty much have locked down on our MVP hardware, our MVP firmware, and plan to start conducting our clinical trials as well as user trials in the month of like April is what we're targeting right now. The goal,
Okay.
obviously, it's an aggressive goal, is to kind of do a soft launch around a Q3 timeframe of 2025. So that's what we're aiming towards.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about yourself, Vishal Modi, right? I mean, so you were in big tech. I'm assuming, obviously, like people say, it's no longer a stable job anymore with all the layoffs and everything.
Yes.
But I mean, you had people to surround yourself with. You could have people to lean on. But as often entrepreneurs say, man, it's a lonely space, right? I mean, there are days where you're figuring out everything yourself. You feel like you have absolutely no support. You're questioning yourself, saying, is this the right decision to do? Um, so how has that journey been for you from the moment you started this to, and then where do you take inspiration from to keep going at this? Because I mean, the other thing is, like you said, I mean, you've bootstrapped it, right? I mean, you've not taken money from anybody else to invest. I mean, obviously that might be part of your roadmap, but just talk about Vishal Modi as a founder, what you've learned through this journey and anything you can share.
Yeah, no, absolutely. If I look at myself, I mean, Anthony, I think of myself in this as the version two of Vishal Modi, right? The version one of Vishal Modi was somebody who was like completely risk averse, not willing to take any risk, who had a very defined path in which he wants to pursue things, and never like had the courage to go outside of those set boundaries or challenge himself. And I think my pivoting point was again that like all through that journey, like multiple failures, and I, in fact, I had a startup, or at least a startup idea, I would say, in back in 2011 around smartphone addiction, because I was a victim of it. And you're talking 2011 when smartphones were not even that prevalent, right? But
Yeah.
well, so again, developed an app, all the good stuff, and then I came across somebody who I was wanted to work with, and that person was an expert and was writing a book on Facebook addiction. And as things progressed, she was willing to partner. Where it got stuck was the contract negotiations and how to set the financials, etc. And having no knowledge at that point of time in how to do business, was things just stopped, and that thing still haunts me till date, right? And so that those failures over a period of time kind of gave me a boost or a courage to say do something about this, which led me to my MBA. And obviously the pandemic with my own weight loss journey gave me that courage and to pursue this. And I would say yes, it's been a lonely journey in this entrepreneurial world, especially when you're bootstrapping. And one thing I'll tell you, Anthony, is in the last 2 years, one thing if I have learned is how to better manage my emotions. It's a roller coaster ride, more valleys than peaks, to be honest. But what keeps me going are those positive conversations. One positive conversation a day.
Yeah.
And it need not be about the product. It need not be about somebody telling me that you have a great idea, a great product. It could be just a conversation in the hallway, in this co-working space where we are, or it could be a phone call with a friend. It could be a mentor. But that one positive conversation keeps the momentum going. And that is what it's
Yeah.
all about. Is keep going every single day, no matter what. Keep swimming, as one of my previous bosses used to call, just keep swimming, and there will be, and make sure that you're in the right swim lane. And that is, I think, the key to just keep moving forward. I still have a long way to go. I believe I'm still early, but that's one thing I like to share is just keep plugging in. It's not an easy route, but if you are in it, just make sure you keep swimming and you will reach your destination.
Yeah, good advice. Keep swimming. I mean, that applies not just for an entrepreneurial journey. I mean, it's for just life in general, I guess. So, beautiful advice. So, what's next with Spoonified? I mean, I know you said you're not going to limit yourself just with the spoons. Pretty much anything that you can put on the table, intaking, food and beverages with. So just talk about your vision for the company and where all do you see your range of products, if you will, being used.
So we are looking at again kind of building this ecosystem, which involves not only expanding our portfolio to things beyond the fork and the spoon, but to a plate, cup, or serving spoon. But one of the feedback or insights that we learned during our market research was like moms of toddlers are always concerned about if their kids are getting enough nutrition. And so that has triggered
Yeah.
like conversation that kids, picky eaters, they have allergies. So is there a segment that we can serve through this technology that we have built? Which has also like we as a team thought that, hey, can we have a smart lunchbox, that we can kind of offer it to kids and that complements the utensils that are being used at home. So there's this horizontal expansion of portfolio that we are thinking from a vertical, like innovation from a product standpoint. We are looking at sensors like NIR spectroscopy. What that allows us to do is provide not only more precision nutritional insights into the food that you're consuming, but also it can be tapped to determine the freshness of the food. Like imagine your spoon or fork to tell you that this scoop of Greek yogurt that you're eating has 1.3 grams of protein, or you're scooping something and it gives an indicator that the freshness of this, it's not a fresh food. There's could be some
Yeah.
sort of contamination in it. So there's lots that we are looking at. That we also are working with the University of Texas Nanotechnology Institute to explore that further. So that's our vision. Is we want to innovate not only vertically in the existing product, but also expand our product portfolio and offer these tools, these utensils that people can use as part of their daily lives. And the beauty
Yeah.
is that it's a spoon and a fork, and humans innately know how to use spoon and fork. So learning curve that we have, and what we have, when we did some user trials, we gave the product to be put in hand and people just knew how to use it. All they had to do was just click the power button. So that's a
Yeah.
big part in our industry, but that's where we want it to be, is have that entire utensil ecosystem be part of their life.
Got it. Got it. Yeah, that makes total sense in terms of, how you're looking at it. As they say, you have to look at this from the user's perspective, which is super important. I mean, you, Vishal, and your team can come up with whatever you like, the smart box, but I mean, you got to take into account how the kids use it, how they actually use it in school. I mean, how much space do they have, all that good stuff, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And we already have got like ideas from, as we talk to these potential consumers. We have talked to about 120 plus customers, potential customers, I should say. And we have got
Hmm.
ideas, right? And we have leveraged it to build our features in our backlog. Like we have got ideas about, like, hey, what if I want to carry this out in a restaurant? What do you do? Like, can you put
Yeah.
a case? And the analogy that was given is like an AirPod case. Like it can not only charge, but I can carry it around. So that was one that we have it in our backlog. We want to build a case for it. The other one was more about like, what if I'm eating outside in a restaurant? How can you kind of tell? And I would still be able to kind of track my calories. How would you do it? So we have a feature associated to that. And
Yeah.
obviously, we also have got requests like, hey, what if I want to make the user stop eating completely? And can you give the user like shock and the spoon falls off from the ground? I'm like, that's too extreme. But you're spot on. We have to always think in terms of what the consumers are asking for. Like, what are their needs? How are they using it?
Yeah.
That journey in itself has given us so much insight that is driving not only a product roadmap, but a feature roadmap.
Yeah, I mean, imagine something like an alarm in the house that says Vishal's eaten too much today. The fridge is locked, the pantry is locked, and everything is shut for the day, right? You've had your calories.
Yeah. And one of the things that
Yeah.
we do, because we track like your eating habits real time. So we have a user profile that is based on USDA's dietary recommended intake, which says that Vishal, being this demographic, he needs to have this much amount of carbs, proteins, and fat. And once you hit that, we give you alert that, hey, you have reached the
Yeah.
recommended threshold for this nutrition. Imagine extending that to somebody who is on a chronic condition management plan for, let's say diabetes or weight loss.
Mm.
And in those scenarios, that profile is adjustable or can be modified. And once you reach that threshold, you are alerted. And that's our way to intervene and tell the users, like, this is what you should be eating. If you continue eating, yes, it's not going to help you. And at the same time, we also provide that insight to the dietitian that, your patient essentially hit this threshold and he kept eating. And now it allows those clinicians to make better, it gives them insights to curate a more personalized plans, if you will, and ultimately
Yeah.
help these patients reach their intended health outcome much more quickly and efficiently. And it goes back to this whole concept of like value-based care. And we are
Mm.
intending to play a very small role to enable these institutions to deliver value-based care.
Beautiful. So let's speak a little bit about the technology itself, Vishal. I mean, you mentioned obviously demographic.
Mhm.
The database needs to be constantly updated because people are constantly innovating on what we eat and drink as well.
Mhm.
And then, I mean, different types of diets for different people. I'm assuming there's a very strong AI layer that you've built into this as well, or at least as part of your plan. Maybe just give us a glimpse of where and how you keep getting this data sets, if you will,
Yeah.
from. I mean, obviously you need to take different cultures, different cuisines, so many things to consider, right? I mean, so you got to constantly keep that updated. Keep in mind, what you might like as well, right? I mean, you might like Chinese food versus liking something from what you're born and brought up in. So your
Right.
tastes change, or you're forced to change as well. So there's a lot that goes in. So maybe talk a little bit about the technology layer that you've built and how you've kind of built that future proof as well.
Absolutely. So our device itself, I'll start from the hardware side. So we have the device itself with multiple different sensors, including a camera that's built into the utensil itself. What that allows us to do is track plated as well as non-plated foods, meaning like barcoded foods or prepackaged foods, if you will. We use that image to essentially recognize what food item it is. And today, the database that we have tracks, and it's a third-party database that we use to track all these different food items. We track up to five, like I think around a million or two different food items, including prepackaged foods. So once the food is identified, we are then have various different sensors that allows us to track your hand movements and then determine precisely if the food is actually going in your mouth. So that's kind of the hardware or secret sauce that within the hardware on how we track your eating habits and eating patterns, eating speed, the weight of the scoop that's going in your mouth. And then we have a companion app that we have built. We are using React Native to allow us to target both Android and iOS at the same time. And that app kind of calibrates, it has your profile, it calibrates and communicates over Bluetooth protocol in real time to determine the eating patterns, eating speeds, and keeps a record of it. And that's, we use AWS as our infrastructure, so it can then it's also, the React Native also gives us the advantage of having a web app, which can then be
Yeah,
extended to like clinicians or dietitians to modify
basically cross-platform, if you will.
cross-platform.
Yeah,
Exactly. One of the
yeah,
things that we also are looking at and realize as part of this journey is that this nutrition tracking being such an intimate journey, people always like, patients perspective is to be hand-holded in this journey. They like to
yeah,
talk to the dietitians all the time or get their feedback, get that assertion, like affirmation that what I'm eating is correct. And that's a gap in the industry, because post COVID, what we have seen is rise in number of people asking for dietitian nutrition services, and there's only a handful of them. Today in US, the ratio of a patient to a dietitian is 1 to 75. And
yeah.
that's not a healthy ratio. So what we are trying to, or one of the features in our app, is a on-demand nutritional advisor that is your companion. You can ask it any questions. And what makes it different is we utilize your personalized eating insights, your nutrition intakes for the past however months that you've been using it to give you recommendations on what type of food that you should eat. So think of it this way: if I'm asking for a recipe that involves, something carb related, but because I know that in the last 6 months I've not been getting enough amount of calcium, the recipe that I would recommend would obviously be something that has a potato or some sort of carb in it, but it also will include a component of high calcium. So
Yeah,
that's where
yeah.
we personalize those outputs. So that's what we are working on right now to build that model, and offer that personalized services, in the app. So that's kind of the high
That is very
level.
nicely thought out. Yeah. That's very nicely thought out. I mean, you're obviously taking into account what goes in, the nutritional aspects of it. I mean, at the same time, if you're a patient with something and your doctor needs to say, okay, I mean, here are XYZ things that you need more of, that technology can come to the aid of, in this case, a patient or somebody who actually needs more of it or less of it. So that's very nicely thought out, Vishal.
And at the same
So
time, our devices also auto learn, so it adjusts itself. The eating speed, the eating habits, and one of the things that this came from one of the interviews that we conducted was like, can there be a setting to make those limits more aggressive or fine tuned? If you want to be really
yeah.
hard and make sure that you eat slowly, you can adjust your settings, or configure it in the app so that the device alerts you if you're even going slightly beyond your eating speed. So those are the things that, again, goes back to the comment that it's all about the users. Build a product that your users are going to use, and how are they going to use, and that's what we are doing as part of this journey.
Yeah, so I'm sure you'll get this question 10 out of 10 times you speak to people. Can you wash the spoons? Can you put it in a dishwasher?
So the way we have designed the spoon, and yes, you are absolutely right. We get this question all the times I talk about the product. The way we have designed the product in our first generation is the spoon head and the fork head are detachable. So think of it as your electric toothbrush, right? The electronics
Yep.
and circuitry are built into the handle. You just detach the spoon head, the fork head, which does not have any electrical components. You just wash it, and the rest of the device has a mechanism built into it to make it like splash proof.
Yeah.
Eventually, what we want to do is we are looking at materials to make it IP67, and also once we reach that right state, also look at potentially using materials that can be dishwasher safe. So again, that's part of the evolution of the product, but we have kept that thing in mind, and our existing product would allow the users to wash the spoon head and then insert it, and that should still protect the circuitry and everything within the hand.
Yeah, the smart toothbrush analogy is pretty good, right? I mean that's a nice way to look at it, and I mean, keep it clean as well, right? So which is what everybody will want to.
And as part of this journey, I can tell you, Anthony, how many electric toothbrushes I have disassembled at home. Different brands, to look at like, how is such a technology built into such a small form factor, and so that in fact was the first step. After that drawing that I mentioned to you on the piece of paper, that was the next step, and since then it has been generation after generation, to getting to this point where we have something tangible, functional, that we are showing to partners across the industry.
Got it. Yeah. I mean, it all starts something in our house, something right in front of us, and you never know where that inspiration comes from. So,
Right.
Vishal, thanks so much for taking the time. It's been a blast speaking to you about Spoonified. I mean, you got something awesome going, and wish you guys the very best. I look forward to using your product one day. And so let's stay in touch and keep us updated on your journey at Spoonified. All the best, Vishal.
Absolutely. Thank you, Anthony, for having me here. It was a pleasure sharing the journey, and yeah, definitely we'll add you to our user trial list, and we'll reach out once we kickstart that in April.
Awesome. Take care, Vishal.
Sounds good. Thank you.